Well, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and begin, and we're excited to have you here today for the latest webinar, Tableau Stocking Stuffers. So Santa has come, and there are lots of Tableau goodies to distribute today. We're excited to have you. Thank you for joining us. And as always, thank you to Technion Data Solutions for hosting these webinars. Both Bridget and I are consultants at Technion, so we love working with clients, and we also love working with our partners, which you see here: Warescape, Tableau, Alteryx, DataRobot, and Snowflake. Best in class for what they do: Warescape doing data warehouse automation, DataRobot doing predictive analytics and automating that, Tableau doing visual analytics, Alteryx doing everything from data integration to predictive modeling, allowing you to create data flows, and Snowflake allowing you to take that to the cloud. So excited to present today, and thanks to Technion for hosting this. If anyone out there has any needs when it comes to data, Technion would love to help you, and both Bridget and I would be excited to work with you as well. Speaking of Bridget and I, there we are. Happy holidays to everyone. It's a fun time of year, so we're excited today to show you some of the really cool new things in Tableau, and to stuff your stockings full of that. We'll get started. I'm going to show you just a couple of things before I turn it over to Bridget. But one of the things that I am really excited about in Tableau are set actions. So set actions, a new type of action that allow all kinds of really cool functionality. And I'll show you just a few things here, and then I think Bridget may even have a few additional use cases to show. I'm going to start just by creating a simple view. I'm going to create a geographic view by region, and in order to do that, I'm going to use region as a geographic field. So I'm going to define a geographic role. I'm going to create it from the state, since each region has a set number of states. Now Tableau can actually draw that region and even fill it in. If I were to use a measure here, so I've got West region, Central region, East region, and South region. And my goal here is that I want to create a dashboard that will allow me to select one or more regions and to see how the sales for that region relates to the sales for all regions. Now, I could potentially do this in previous versions of Tableau using level of detail calculations. I'd have to get really clever with the actions, because actions before were always filters or maybe highlighting, but there wasn't a lot that I could do with highlighting in terms of logic. So I love the idea of having a set action. And we're going to take a look at how those work, but the first thing I'm going to do is actually create a set based on region, because that's what I'm going to use here in just a bit. So I'm going to create a set from the menu on region, and you'll see that that allows me to give the set a name. I'm just going to call it region set. I'm still working out kind of the naming conventions that I like, but especially now that I've gone back to using sets a lot more with set actions. But just adding the word set, I think, helps me at least understand what the set is based on, and then knowing that it's a set. And so here it's just going to be a regular set based on a field, region. And I'm not going to select any of these for now. I'm going to let the action fill in the values that are selected, but a set can contain one or more values for the dimension. So the set could contain anywhere from 0 to 4 different regions. I'm going to say OK. So I've got my region set created at this point. And my goal is to show a bar chart that shows all sales, but then highlights or brushes the bar chart when it comes to the sales for the selected region. So I've got a nice bar chart here, just sales by category to start with. But I'm going to take this set now and use it in the view. I'm going to put it on color. And notice that that gives me an in or out of the set. So everything right now is out of the set, and that's fine. I'm going to, I'll come back to clean up some of the formatting here in a minute once we get this working the way that we want to. So now on a dashboard, I can take my sales by region, and that will work pretty well. I might even do some formatting here just to take the layers, maybe just wash everything out so that we've just got just that. Maybe move it up there. Maybe do a little bit more formatting to get rid of some of the grid lines and row dividers. So no row dividers at all. And we might even move this over here. So I'm holding Shift while I drag to kind of get that to show up there. So there's that view. And now I want to take my proportional brushing view, and I'll just float that out here as well, so that I can see that bar chart, and we'll fit that nicely in there. I'm going to remove the color legend. I'm going to hide the title, and I'm even going to hide the labels for the rows. Now at this point, I'm ready to set up my action so that I can start to see the sales for the selected region. Now, in previous versions of Tableau, what I might have done is something like this. I might have just selected the view and said, let's just use it as a filter. And now if I select a region such as West, you'll see the values here change, and the bars show the associated sales for that region, but only for the region selected, because it's using the selection as a filter. And so I don't have any easy way of seeing all the other regions. What's the total sales? I would have some options with some fixed level of detail calculations, but there's some complexity that goes along there that I have to be aware of. But now, rather than use it as a filter, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a set action. So from dashboard actions, and I'm going to add a new action. Here, what I'm going to add is not a filter, not a highlight, not a URL. There is a new navigation action, but that's not what I'm looking for either. Instead, what I want to do is I want to change the values of a set. So I will select that, and I want this to be driven by the sales by region when I select a region, and I want it to target a set in my Superstore sample data set, and specifically I want that to be my region set. So you can target sets in any data source that the workbook's using, and you can target any normal sets that are present in that data source. And then when I clear the selection, I get to choose whether I want to remove all the values from the set, add all the values to the set. So when I select a region and then I deselect it, do I want it to have all the regions back in the set, or none, or just keep whatever the last selection was? In this case, I'm going to remove them all, and we'll see why here in a second, because ideally what I wanted to do is only show the region when it's selected, but by default show the sales for everything else. And so I'll say OK. And now notice when I select a region, I'll select West, it actually does show a difference between those that are in the set and those that are out of the set. So selecting west, I can see in and out, but I'm going to adjust this just a little bit to make it more intuitively obvious what's being shown, because I did remove that color legend. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reverse the order. I'm going to drag in below out so that they all left a line there. And then the out, I'm going to change the color there to just white in this case, and apply. And you'll say, whoa, it looks like they disappeared. Well, that's not exactly the idea that we're going for. So I'm going to add a border back to it so that I can actually see them there. But that allows it to indicate to me that the blue filled bars are the portion that I'm really interested in. They're the portion that I just clicked for west, but the rest of the bar does give me indication of how much the total sales were, especially when it's stacked together. It will show that. So now I go back to my dashboard, and now as I click region to region, I can start to see the proportion of the bar that is made up by sales of that region. So that's a proportional brushing driven by set actions. And really cool that I can now do that, and do that fairly easily in Tableau, simply by using a set and a set action. There are some other really cool uses of sets that some individuals in the community have come up with. I think Jonathan Drummy was the first person that I saw do something similar to this next one, and that is if I have a tree map, this now gives me the ability to drill down within a tree map, or other types of visualizations as well. But tree maps are one of those things that often you'll be looking at maybe a high level, and you'll say, well, I'm curious, what makes up technology? So I simply click, and now I get to see the next level within technology. And I think, okay, technology and phones, what makes up phones? So I click again, and now I can see each individual phone and the sales made up there, or technology and machines. So I click there, and now I've got a breakdown of machines. And if I click and click again, now I'm back to my high level view of the tree map. So all of this interactivity, all within just one single sheet, and that's really cool. Another possibility for set actions is that it allows you to have interactivity within just a single view, which wasn't easily possible before. So how did I create this? Well, it's a little bit involved, but not terrible. I started with the high level dimension, which is the category, and you'll see that I've added that to the view. And then I've created some alternating sets and calculations for each subsequent level. So you'll see I've got a set for category. So I simply created that category set. And then, based on that, I've got a level 2 calculation that I'll use as a dimension. And that says if the row is contained within that category set, so if the category for that row of data is there, then we'll grab the subcategory level value. Otherwise, we'll just return the category level. And you can see there's nothing selected currently. So the first level is technology, and the second level is also technology. And that's because it's all going to this else right now. And then I simply layer this again. So I created a set based on this calculation. So I've got this level 2 set. And right now, if I look at it, it's just a list of categories. As I would click and change the potential values, I would see this list change, which is fine. It's exactly what I wanted to do. but I'm going to control all of the values contained in the set by the actions and not by coming in here and actually checking them. So that's fine that it sort of changes dynamically. And then I create one more level calculation here, level 3, which is based on that set and the level 1 set. So if it's in level 2, then we'll go down to the product level. If that record is only in level 1 but not level 2, then we'll show the subcategory. And if it's not in any of the sets, then we'll simply show the category. And then it's just a couple of actions. Here, usually you go to dashboard and actions, but we're not even working with the dashboard, so I go to worksheet and actions. And you'll see I've got level 1 to level 2, level 2 to level 3, and both of those are just working as you select. The first one fills in that level 1 set, the second one fills in the level 2, and both are set that it will remove the values if it's deselected. And so now when I select, it fills in level 1. If I select the next one, it fills in level 2 with technology, and so now all of these calculations are working the way that I want, and I have a nice interactive view right here within a single view. So lots of really cool things you can do with set actions. Here's another possibility. I've created another view that uses set action, and here I've got it working on hover. So as I hover over a single state, I can see all of the other states that have higher or lower sales than that state. And I've done that using some level of detail calculations, and that has worked really well. So I have a state set that gets filled in with the action. So if I hover over Nevada, it adds that to that set, and then I'm able to use some level of detail calculations to say which state did I select, and how much sales do I have for that selected state. So if I edit here, you'll see that that I'm just doing it fixed so that I can get for every record in the data set, I can see I can pull back the value of the sales for the state. So if it's in that state set, then it grabs the sales, sums all of that up, and then ultimately I have access to that across the entire data set. And then I can do some other logic to say, for each individual state, is it higher or lower than the sales of the selected state? So that works really well. So Bridget will have a few more use cases for set actions, and she's definitely going to have some cool things to show you for the next thing that I'll get into, which I'm just going to introduce, and that is transparency. So transparency is now an option for individual views in Tableau, and I'm just going to show a little bit of it and talk a little bit about how it works. Bridget will have even cooler things to show. So really simple use of transparency is that maybe you just have a background image that you want to add to your dashboard, and then you want to put some visualization on top of that. So I've got a visualization of Christmas tree sales that I'm going to just float on top of the dashboard here, and you'll say that's not transparent, nor is it formatted very well. Well, the nice thing is that it's very easy to add transparency. I'll simply format the shading of the worksheet and switch it to none, and now I've got a nice transparent view. Nice in that it is transparent, but not so nice in that you can't really read it. So I'm going to adjust a few other things here. I'm going to take away grid lines. We don't need those. And then I'm going to go to the sheet itself, and I'm going to adjust maybe the color and the size of the line, maybe even the label. Just bump that up a little bit and come back now here, and it's better. I can see it a little bit better. I might change the font, but it's still not entirely easy to read. There are some things here that would be even nicer. So what I can do is come to the dashboard, and under layout I can go to the background. It's on none right now, which is transparent, but I can change the opacity and actually select a color. And so by giving it a little bit lower opacity, I can potentially wash out the background a little bit and make it easier to read. So lots of really cool things that you could do with transparency. I can even add in other views that could be transparency. So here's the types of Christmas trees. You can see that one's already set to be transparent. Make it a little bit larger so that it looks nicer. And then I can set this up as a filter so that as I select each year, I can see the different types. And then I might even look at different possibilities for how this would work. Now notice this view is occluding some of the interactivity that I might want. So I'm going to have to pay attention to which views are on top or below, but I do have a floating option, so I can say bring that one to the front. Now it's covering that one, but since it's transparent, that's fine. I can see the other view through, and that works really nicely. Lots of other really cool things that you could think about doing with transparency. Lots of other interactivity. I'll leave you with one more just fun one here. A parameter that adjusts a custom image, which is part of a view that is transparent on top of another image. And as I adjust the gas of the fireplace, the flame gets larger and larger until it gets out of control. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bridget.
Well, thank you very much, Joshua. So I hope you're thinking what I'm thinking as you kind of start to see what these features can do. And so for me, one of the questions I begin to ask is, what does the dashboard of the future look like? So as we start thinking about showing information going into the future, I'm a big sci-fi fan, and so for me, I kind of look for my inspiration there, and so it's looking at Tron, it's looking at other things, and so my big question is, how do we create the dashboard of the future? And so to me, a quick Google search is going to answer this. And as I look through here, I see lots of dark backgrounds. If I really kind of dig in deeper, I see movement. I don't have movement as an option. But you can see lots and lots of maps and circles and fun charts. And so to me, I kind of look at this, and you see kind of this user interface. It always seems like to me every sci-fi show I've ever watched puts this thing right in the middle. I'm not sure if that's just from kind of a literal dashboard standpoint or what. So you know what? I figure I'm going to take some inspiration from this and see what I can do. So we've got some circles in the middle. We've got our map. We've got gratuitous lines. What are we going to do with this? And so that is where I kind of said, let's sci-fi this as much as possible. And so this is a completed dashboard, and I'll go ahead and actually put this in presentation mode so that we can see all of it. So I just kind of went ahead and made kind of an abstract form of a line chart. My data wasn't entirely there, so some of this is faking it until you make it. But this is just where I've kind of knocked things off and used a Gantt chart instead of an actual literal line chart. This is another abstraction of a bar chart. So it's just taking it and putting it at its spot and moving things around just because the future is so fast that we are literally moving the bars. Same thing with this map. It's just got a call out. I've got some survey visualization kind of showing the differences between those who leave versus those who stay. Kind of seeing where there's differences in job satisfaction, approach to work-life balance, and environment satisfaction. And then I've got this heavily abstracted chart, which is kind of a connected scatter plot, really. just identifying majors and things like that. The other thing I noticed when I was doing this is that it seems like titles don't go in logical spots. It seems like they're kind of artistically placed. You're putting in connectors, so it's very much kind of you build by association. So I've got yellow tying to parts of this, I've got this blue tying to parts of this, and then this red ties to parts of this. And so when I look at transparency, visually you can see I've got many, many layers. I've got a map. I've got the lines, which I drew in PowerPoint, by the way. So if you don't have access to design tools, don't forget the virtue of PowerPoint. I made these lines, set them semi-transparent in PowerPoint, and then saved it off as a PNG. So it was, a few minutes worth of work to get a really cool effect. And then also trying to build out kind of the population pyramid and then putting in some different annotations. So this is, again, a bar chart, inverted, because we're in the future, and so everything's got to be flipped around. And just trying to help people navigate. The color scheme is kind of a mix of what I've seen from Tron and a few other movies. I really wanted to just kind of play with this. So this is something that, from a business standpoint may not work, but I wanted to kind of highlight some concepts here. So one is that set actions that Joshua mentioned. And so you can see a few things happened when I clicked on this. So the highlight color went from this one to this one. And to me, that is one of the most valuable pieces of set actions is I can start thinking about this from a user experience side. I can start highlighting things that are going to change and kind of let people understand that this filter is persisting. And so as I click through here, you'll also notice that this line here, this is me playing with circles and making kind of an alternative to a donut chart using circles. Lots of math involved in that one. I think that one will be probably discussion for a later tutorial just on using math, using circles, and drawing with them. But I wanted to kind of highlight without being overly excessively stated. When you look at a lot of these futuristic dashboards, they're highly abstract, and there's a little bit of inference that's used. Again, this is kind of one of these things that may or may not fly in most organizations, but I had the opportunity to play with this, and I wanted to kind of explore some thought processes. So this is kind of, these set actions are actually affecting this drawing as well as this. So when we dig a little deeper into what that looks like, I've got my set action. So that is on color. So very much like what Joshua mentioned before, in, out. I've got this dual access just to get the labels in certain spots, to get the lines in certain spots. And then I've also used that to my benefit, so I can put the education, kind of what field is selected on one, and then I can kind of use different color schemes to highlight things, as well as use the font. So I've got two ad hoc calculations here highlighting, if the background is red, effectively, I knew that. So if the background's red, go ahead and make the font white. Otherwise, let the font be red. So I'm using that set probably about 3 different ways. And so I've named this one Education Set Joy. That's my naming convention right now, is I'm trying to come up with some good naming conventions as well. So you can see that life sciences got picked. Again, just like Joshua, I'm not going to select it here. I did just initially when I was designing for proof of concept, but then I've been allowing my selections through here to drive it. So that's kind of how it plays on this one. So you can see some dual axis. You can see where I've intentionally used color to help convey, but then there's this other really abstract piece. And then I've got lots and lots of layers. So part of transparency is starting to think about layers. And this is also helpful where if you have good naming techniques, it helps you find things. So I'm going to go to this circle, and you can see how, again, I'm drawing with this in-out set. And then you'll notice I've got in, out, and I've only got in shown. So what I ended up doing was I had an out, and I actually went ahead and just hid it. So I've got show hidden data. If I go ahead and show this out, you can see that that circle comes here. And if I were to go back to that particular dashboard, you can now see it's got a black circle all the way around it. I didn't want that. That didn't seem very futuristic to me. So I'll just go ahead and undo out of that. Just kind of showing where you can kind of hide things as well to get rid of things. So I've also got my axes fixed and hidden. Again, this just allows that increased abstraction. So you can see here, this is kind of that circle. You can see I've got the calculations. These are window calculations. If you ever want to learn window calculations, circles are the way to do it. Not always the best thing in data viz, but excellent for learning. So that's this highly abstracted view. Now, I can't tease you with something like this and then say, okay, great, there's no way to tie this back to work. That's just not there. So I went ahead and made a more normal version. This is still definitely pushing the edge a bit, but this allows you to see kind of how you can build and think about from a UI UX. I've kind of got the same process set up here where it interacts with the donut chart. So you're affecting this one, but then you're also affecting this other one. I really like this brushing technique because it allows you to interrelate different things together. One of the other probably potential critiques is, why are you using so many donut charts? One of the reasons is I do find it kind of nice to show how sets can also be used to help clarify charts that may or may not stand well on their own. So this is an example of, I've got that same survey data. It was originally bars. I've got no legend here because I'm using this to highlight one key point. Pie charts are good for comparisons across that. So you see I'm using my donut to kind of highlight here 71% that are travel ready or that travel rarely. And then if I click here, I can see the 19% that travel frequently. That's been my focus, is that kind of the people who travel frequently, and then of course I've got my people who don't travel at all. That's not the story I want to tell in this viz, so I'll probably leave it at that, but this does allow my end users a way to kind of explore through the data, and this too leverages the sets that Joshua showed earlier. So if we go into dashboard, we go into actions, we can kind of see these two different set updates. One thing to note is that you do pick a source and that these don't really blend well. So I wouldn't have tried to use these across a blended data source. I know in the past I've kind of run into some of these awesome new features. I try to use them across data blending, and that does end up being a struggle. So these really work best when you keep them all on the same source. So you've got your target set. I'm looking at this. It updates from this one sheet. I knew I'd show this on the demo, so I really tried to make it clear through titling that I wanted this set action added here, select, and then for this one I'm keeping the set values. So whatever was selected, I could say add them all, but then that kind of viz becomes very meaningless, or I could remove them all. Again, same problem, it becomes meaningless at that point. So for that particular one, I went ahead and left it there. With update degrees, that's another one where, to me, it felt valuable to at least have one persistently selected. But if I wanted to, I could remove all of them and let that kind of start kind of tucking away or hiding a little bit. So then that would just vanish. So in this particular case, it is helpful to have that set up. One thing to note with the transparency is, let's say I'm looking at this and I want to go ahead and make an update. Floating is ideally probably the best for doing some of these changes. So you'll notice that kind of the legend comes here. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this. As Joshua kind of showed us, there's a couple ways to get to this format menu. I tend to do it as much as I can right from the dashboard. So I'm going to click on format. And I'm going to go right to that paint bucket, and I'm just going to hit that none, and then you see that that automatically kind of goes away. I can now see that I've got my legend a little bit. I'm also going to get rid of the title, because what I'm actually going to do is let this one be here, and I'm going to drag it down towards the bottom. And then I also went ahead and altered my screen resolution, so I do need to scroll, and I'm going to make sure that this is just nicely lined up a little bit. And one of the new things that has been added somewhat recently is the ability to maneuver using your keyboard. So just using the arrow keys on your keyboard, I can actually start sifting this over either a pixel just by using the standard, or if I hit Shift and an arrow key, I can move it over 10 pixels. So that was a little too much, so I'm just going to kind of move things around a little bit. I'll get it close. It's not going to be perfect. But this just lets me kind of put things here. And now, as Joshua mentioned, I have a certain order in which I want this. And so I can also come to this Layout tab, and you can see here, if I move this up towards the bottom, and I spend a fair amount of my time through here, I can click on this and drag this down below different items. So you can see I've got my number 2 population pyramid. If I drag and hold it, you see a line shows up right underneath. Anyone familiar with Adobe products probably has done something similar. So you can see that now I've moved this population pyramid is up on top. And then the thing I'm also going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those labels that my boss said, those labels aren't cutting it for me. I actually like that little weird transparent thing you made. One of the other things that's now happened is I'm kind of affecting other visualizations. So I may pull this one over a little bit, kind of keep it out of that zone. Same thing here. Another keyboard shortcut I'm going to use is G. So I'm going to hit the G key, and now I have a grid. And what this allows me to do, particularly if I'm working with floating, is I can kind of start moving things and making sure things align. This just lets me do a little bit better than eyeballing. For those of us who used to keep a clear, transparent ruler, I've actually lost mine. So I can no longer find where I placed my ruler. And that's a good problem to have if you ask me. So I'll just kind of go ahead and sort things out here. And that way things kind of line up nicely. Again, I could definitely spend a lot of time getting these things lined up perfectly. For purposes of this webinar, I'll just kind of leave it there. I'll kind of make sure things line up for the most part through here, so I can see I may want to work on some sizing for here and kind of moving things around. So I may bounce back and forth between the charts here and there as well. So a couple quick ways to get there. I've got the go to sheet right off the edge. And so that's where I may push the size of this particular one up a smidge. And then kind of compare how they all look. So that's one way to kind of do this. The other nice part about this, if I don't remember the G key, I can go right into dashboard. You see how I've got show grid. I can also click on grid options. And let's say instead of 20, I'm going to go ahead and put this to 50. Maybe I don't want as many grids, or maybe I want less, or maybe I'm actually designing to a very specific specification of where I want them from a size standpoint. This just allows me that much extra level of control. So that grid is there. I can hit G, and it's gone again. And so you can see I've kind of got my dashboard. It looks a little bit tidier since I've moved things around. And then I'll also go ahead and just hide that one sheet. The final resource that I've been using for inspiration is there is Lindsay Poulter has done an amazing job, and I think she's adopted sets as kind of her feature. And so she's got out on Tableau Public, and I went ahead and already put this in the chat. But this entire workbook of just almost everything you can imagine to do with sets. So you can click on different things and get different lines. You can kind of see a bar chart in a table. It's just, to me, it's amazing the kind of the brainstorm that's come with this. But this is probably by far one of the best examples I've found of, okay, I want to click and compare cities. So kind of that brushing example Joshua showed, but doing it across the whole dashboard. So allowing sets to really become, to me, the way of the future, allowing it to kind of think about, okay, I'm doing this analysis, but maybe I want to do some what-if analysis. She's done some interesting things with tooltips and doing highlighting and dashboards almost within a tooltip. Each of these items, to me, has just been pretty impressive, and I won't lie, I downloaded this kind of just to keep for me. There's some drill downs, there's just some different ways to kind of explore and highlight. I know I'm using some of these to build applications. So when I think about if I want user input, but I don't necessarily want to write it back to Google Sheets, I can use some of these to kind of allow users to supply input and see that input so that it's persisting. So it's a nice way to kind of cue people to let people know what's selected as well. But this is a rather impressive workbook. Highly recommend hitting the download button on this workbook. Again, Lindsay Poulter has put this together. But this is a terrific resource that's out there. And it's one that I've been using pretty extensively. And it's partly allowed me to kind of think about how do we design towards the future? How do we start kind of showing and communicating in ways that are different and novel and new, and allow our dashboards to become more of applications and go beyond. So with that, I think I'll go ahead and open it up to any questions.
Yeah, so feel free to ask your questions there in the questions tab on GoToWebinar, and we'll read those as they come in, and we'd be happy to help with anything out there. I do see some positive feedback, just some thanks for doing these webinars. You're welcome, and thank you all for attending. We'd love to do these. Okay, so David asks, is there any plan to add some kind of a Snap to grid? So Bridget, you showed the grid. Is there any plan that you know of for snapping to that grid?
I believe there's some possibility. I don't know where that is on the roadmap. And I don't know too much more about it. I do know that having the grid, so again, hitting kind of that, being able to hit G when you're in the dashboard view has been immensely helpful to me. I've thrown out my ruler. And then I'm also seeing another question about the public viz that I recommended. So it is out on Tableau Public. So if you're not familiar with Tableau Public, it's a resource I can't recommend enough. And so I'll go ahead and re-put that in comments as well, just in case for some reason it's not in the chat. I'll go ahead and put it in the chat as well, so that URL will be out there. But that's a fantastic workbook. And then also, Joshua and I both have public presences as well, so you can actually see I've got this dashboard, kind of the start of it out there. And then I'll update that one in a little bit. And then Joshua, I think you've actually got two. I think I found you have two of them. You've got one for your book, and then you've got your primary one, I think.
Yeah, that's likely true.
There we go.
There, that's the main one.
So you can see Joshua is an expert at really creating some of these really cool kind of features, and so he kind of shows like Tableau and Maestro, and then kind of triangle art, as I would say. But it's really nice. And then I've got kind of things like this and just areas where I've played as well. I would also say, too, you've got kind of featured authors, so different authors get featured. You've also got the Tableau gallery, including Viz of the Day. So this is another great place to get inspiration. You can see other people are kind of playing with transparent sheets and actions as well. This one in particular is kind of a novel idea in which it uses the background. So when you click on different pieces here, the background changes. Maybe it's, there we go. So you can see that the background changes. So that's kind of another way to kind of cue your audiences and let them know what they're looking at.
All right, there's some more questions that have come in. Can we download the workbook? So it looked like you had a start of it, Bridget, on Tableau Public that can be downloaded, and I think we'll have some more.
Yeah, I'll update it. Right now, this version's slightly broken, so I'm going to update it with the latest version, and then that should be downloadable. And then that way, too, for anyone that wants to kind of explore and see kind of the circles, you can see kind of the multi-layers on the circles and play with that.
Yeah. Okay, so we do have a question here from Joshua about using the go to sheet action. Do you have a demo of that available, or even here, possibly show how that works?
So the one thing to remember with the kind of go to next sheet button, this is not a filtered replacement. What this does, if I set this edit button, so I've got navigate to, and let's say I want to kind of go ahead and navigate right to my next dashboard. And I could choose an image, or I can leave it here. I can kind of put text here. And so that way when I hover over this, it's going to say something. And when I click here, this is in lieu of filtering. So dashboard, click on actions. And then because I'm in desktop, I do need to remember to hit Alt-click. This is something I think I forget every time. One use I've seen with this type of button is particularly mobile. I also did a dashboard a while back, so before this was implemented, and kind of made a UI. And so this is where I had the original actions. So this is where you can kind of click on these buttons and they take you to. So I could actually go through and replace what is actually a filtered action with those buttons, and that would be an ideal use of that feature. One challenge with those buttons, and that I will say this is kind of something that I've run into with them, is, for example, when I do some mobile apps and I allow drill down, you do still need to use a filter in order to move back so that you clear the filter. So for example, if I've got this application, I drill down into something, and then let's say I'm ready to go back to zones and I want this filter to clear, I still want that to be a filtered action with kind of where I do the one or the endless navigation trick.
Yeah, so that was a great question, and I do think that for simple navigation, the
Mobile.
action works well. Yeah, for mobile it works well, but yeah, if you're doing any kind of filtering, then what you noted about needing to clear it, it's going to take a little bit more effort. Is there any work being done on geocoding from street addresses to latitude and longitude? Currently can only do it down to the zip code level. So that's a question from Pat. That's a great question. I'm not aware that that is something available now or in the near future, but definitely something that I'd be interested in knowing if Tableau ever released that. That would be very useful. Definitely at Technion we'll work with our clients using Alteryx, which does allow some options there. But I will definitely keep my eyes out for options within Tableau too. All right, there may be a few questions that we did not get to. If so, we apologize, but we will attempt to get to them offline. And feel free to reach out to us either in person or reach out to Technion. We would love to talk with you and help you out further. And so thank you all for attending. It's a pleasure as always. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and anything else that you may celebrate. We will talk to you again in the new year, and we love doing this for you and for the community. Definitely let us know if there is any way that we can improve or meet your needs. We would love to hear from you. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.